Greetings, scribblers. Kent Sean here. And today, I want to talk about what makes a great ending for a story. No, that's not what I want to talk about. Let's talk about what makes them bad. I am always preaching that stories are about change. We want stories to take us on a journey from one place to another. Or in the case of Bilbo Baggins, there and back again. But occasionally, a story runs so far off the rails that makes us wonder why we spent 10 hours on the damn thing in the first place. Today, in collaboration with my bald brother from another mother, Dr. Ranger Writing, I'm going to share with you 3 of the most putrid, foul, awful, disgusting, evil, and downright bad story endings in history. Dr. is going to cover the flip side and give you his choices for some of the best endings. But scribblers, before we get into it, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss one episode of Writing Drama. Scribblers, this video by definition is a steaming pile of spoilers, so if you haven't read one of the books I'm about to eviscerate, or think you might like to in the future, please feel free to skip to the next book. I'll leave the book titles and times in the description. Stinker ending number 1, Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. This classic literary masterpiece is beloved by generations of readers. Many of its iconic characters and themes have been endlessly copied in movies, novels, and comics. In Western countries, you'd pretty much have to be living under a rock not to have heard of the Mad Hatter, heard the saying down the rabbit hole, or better yet, off with their heads.
Off with his head!
I have loved this story since my mother read it to me back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. This story is a marvelous acid trip of a journey full of fascinating characters, settings, and complex themes. But scribblers, the ending is so bad it made me want to give my eyes an onion bath. At the end of the story, Alice is attending the trial of the Knave of Hearts, accused by the Red Queen of the theft of the royal tarts, apparently a crime that carries the death penalty. When Alice is called to testify, Carroll, in a stroke of genius, has her begin to grow larger, showing she's learned a thing or two in her journeys about right and wrong. In a way, he's saying her size demonstrates her moral superiority. In this climactic moment, as the Red Queen sends her minions to attack this monstrous challenge to her tyranny, Alice wakes up.
Oh, come on! What the heck? Carol, seriously?
What happened, Lewis? You run out of acid? Not only does Carroll rob us of the climax and resolution of the story, he effectively invalidates the stakes of the entire story all at once. We spent all this time worried about Alice's safety, only to find out she was never in any danger at all. Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland is like a delicious cake with turd icing. Bad ending number 2, Stephen King's The Tommyknockers. Now, before I proceed to tear this novel a new one,
New what?
I would like to say that in my humble opinion, Stephen King is one of, if not the best, novelist of his generation. I've read every single one of his books, and I would recommend all of them, yes, even Maximum Overdrive, to anyone that aspires to write. The man is a genius, and I do not deserve to dust the keyboard he writes on. That being said, Stephen King is a pantser. You might say he's the king of pantsers.
Dad. Not cool, man. Not cool.
For those of you unfamiliar with the term pantser, it's not somebody that runs up in public and yanks your shorts down. Instead, it's an author that chooses not to plot or outline and instead just flies by the seat of their pants. This is a fun way to come up with a story, and I wrote 2 books this way myself until I came up with the shocking discovery that I'm not Stephen King. Scribblers, in my opinion, pantsing is for either extremely experienced and talented writers or for people with tons of free time to do 7,000 rewrites. In old Stevie King's case, his writing style gets him in a little trouble from time to time. Case in point, The Tommyknockers. The Tommyknockers is the heartwarming story of finding a haunted alien spaceship in a small town in Maine. Unfortunately, the alien space ghosts, or whatever, start mutating the townspeople of Haven into horny inventor weirdos who torture dogs and teleport little boys into space.
Oh no!
On this adventure, we follow our hero, the violent alcoholic James Gardner, who due to a metal plate in his head is immune to the aliens' machinations. Even with all the weird goings on, we still get flashes of classic Stephen King brilliance. But that all comes crashing down at the end when Gardner, for some reason, shoots his ex-lover Bobby, gets in the ship, launches it into space, and kills a quarter of the Havenites along with himself. Impressed yet? Wait! There's more! King goes on to describe how all the triple initial government agencies show up and kidnap the rest of the Havenites and do experiments on them and kill them. Also, you gotta read 241,000 words to get to the end of this super bummer, where the hero saves absolutely no one except the teleport boy.
Whew!
Usually, I'm a sucker for horror novels with a fate worse than death. But this wasn't. They all just died. Thanks, Steve. And last but not least, our bad ending suckfest concludes with Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl. Gillian Flynn wrote a masterpiece of an original thriller, using 2 point-of-view characters, unreliable narrators, and a plot twist that had Tweety birds circling around readers' heads. We spend half the novel pretty much convinced that the evil, cheating egomaniac Nick Dunn killed his wife Amy. The cops close in, ready to throw him behind bars for murder. We find out later that not only is Amy alive, but she's a nutcase sociopath who's been playing Nick, her parents, and the police all along. This book is a roller coaster ride of red herrings, revelations, and finally murder as Amy shows her true colors. Instead of the evil harridan getting her comeuppance, Flynn decides to have her get away with all of it, claiming she was held prisoner by an evil ex-boyfriend who she actually kills. Then Amy blackmails Nick into playing house with her while she makes a new baby with frozen Nick juice. That's gross. She actually ends up threatening the unborn baby to get Nick to delete his memoir. She makes him delete a book. So there you have it. 3 of the worst novel endings in history. But one last thing before I go. It seems that DR Ranger Writing and I have a friendly disagreement on the ending of the popular novella and movie The Mist by Stephen King. I told DR that in my opinion, the ending in both the book and the film was solid. He countered by saying that I am a raving space loon who drowns kittens. Not you, Muffin. Not yet. In The Mist, a group of townsfolk in small-town Maine,
Like every other Stephen King novel,
become trapped in a local supermarket by a thick mist filled with interdimensional monsters that begin to snack on townspeople like popcorn chicken. Meanwhile, inside the store, in the spirit of human cooperation, the townfolk immediately fall into murder, ritualistic human sacrifice, and watching reality TV. Just kidding. They didn't stoop that far. The novella ends when a brave group of friends, led by the protagonist David Drainer and his son Billy, escape the human madness inside to brave the alien madness outside. We never do learn their fate, but at least we know they won't be killed by a bunch of Bible-thumping nutcases with pitchforks. Scribblers, I thought it was an awesome novella that really showed how easily civilization can break down in an emergency. In the end, David and gang get in a car and head south through the monster-filled mist. And the last thing we hear through the static on the radio is one word: Hartford. Loved it. However, the novella ending was not what got DR's panties in a wad. No indeed. DR's gripe was with the 2007 movie of the same name starring Thomas Jane. The movie plot was basically the same as the novella, but the ending, well, they took the ending a little further. In the movie, David, his son Billy, and a few other survivors run out of gas out there in the mist. With monsters all around them, they decided it'd be a good idea to shoot each other rather than to get eviscerated. Using the last bullet to shoot his son Billy, David sits alone, awaiting his fate. Until the army shows up and saves everyone. This, my friends, is classic fulfillment of the horror convention, the fate worse than death. David would have been happy to die rather than to survive and face the horror of what he'd done. Moments from salvation. In my video about genre, link in the description, I describe how the value at stake in horror is always life to the fate worse than death. The scriptwriter delivers here, evoking true horror the way a mere gruesome death never could. It may not be a feel-good ending, but you'll definitely feel it. I'm pretty sure that in his video, DR will tell you that I'm a couple slices shy of a loaf, and my opinion could be improved by a full frontal lobotomy. I respect your opinion, DR, but you may have missed the genius in this moment in cinematic history. I'm not saying that you wouldn't understand genre unless you had it tattooed on the clean, white expanse of your egg-like head, and I'm not saying that DR has the literary depth of a tire ad in a supermarket flyer, and I'm definitely not saying that he couldn't write his way out of a wet paper bag. No, that's what I'm saying. All jokes aside, please go check out DR's video on some of the best story endings, and while you're there, why don't you check out some of his writing on the 4-word and song title writing challenges. I'll link those below. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. You can follow me on Instagram or Twitter, and please go visit my website, kentshawn.com. Till next time, scribblers, butts in seats, fingers on keyboards.